The workshop was Elias's sanctuary, a place where time seemed to stand still, even as it was meticulously measured and recorded. Ancient wood, polished smooth by years of care, gleamed under the warm light. Each surface told a story of dedication and craftsmanship, a testament to Elias's unwavering devotion. Shelves lined the walls, crammed with intricate clocks, each tick and tock a whispered secret. These clocks were not just instruments of time, they were Elias's companions, each one a piece of his soul. Copper gears glinted, their teeth meshing in a silent ballet of time. The precision of their movement was a dance Elias had choreographed, a symphony of mechanics and artistry.
He wasn't just a keeper of time. Elias was its captive, bound by the chains of his own making. Each clock he crafted was a link in that chain, a beautiful yet binding creation. Each tick of the clocks hammered home the relentless march of seconds, minutes, hours, a constant reminder of what he had lost and the impossible dream he clung to. The sound was both a comfort and a torment, a lullaby and a dirge. His fingers, gnarled with age, tightened around the tools of his trade, tools that promised not just measurement but mastery over time itself. Each tool was an extension of his will, a means to bend time to his desires.
Elias, a man etched with age and sorrow, moved amongst them like a phantom, his touch gentle, almost reverent. He was a ghost in his own domain, haunted by the passage of time he so desperately sought to control. His eyes, though, held a feverish glint, reflecting the obsession that consumed him. They were the eyes of a man who had given everything to his craft, and in return had been consumed by it. In the heart of the workshop, where the air was thick with the scent of oil and metal, and the walls were lined with tools of every kind, bathed in the golden glow of a single lamp that cast long, dancing shadows across the room, stood the masterpiece, not just a clock, but a symphony of gears, springs, and shimmering crystal. It towered over Elias, its presence almost otherworldly, a tangled web of intricate mechanics that hummed with a life of its own. Each gear, each spring, seemed to pulse with a rhythm that echoed the heartbeat of time itself.
This was the Time Weaver, a creation born of grief and fueled by a desperate hope. Elias had poured his soul into this device, a creation born of grief and fueled by a desperate hope. It was his last chance to rewrite the past, to undo the mistakes that haunted him. Its hands, crafted from polished silver, moved not just through the hours but through years, each tick a step back in time, its face a swirling vortex of celestial charts and intricate symbols. These symbols were not just for show, they were the key to navigating the rivers of time.
The faint hum intensified as Elias approached, the sound growing louder, more insistent, as if the Time Weaver itself was calling out to him, his shadow falling across its surface, merging with the shadows cast by the lamp, creating an eerie dance of light and dark. His hand, trembling slightly, reached out to adjust a tiny lever, the final piece in a puzzle that had taken years to solve, his eyes glued to the clock face, every muscle in his body tense with anticipation. With a click that echoed like a thunderclap in the silence of the workshop, the Time Weaver sprang to life. The air shimmered, the Time Weaver sprang to life. The air shimmered, the scent of ozone prickling his nostrils, a sign that the boundaries of time were beginning to blur. The scent of ozone prickling his nostrils. He could feel the fabric of reality shifting around him. The impossible was within reach. The past, no longer immutable, beckoned him forward. Elias knew that this was his moment, the culmination of all his efforts. The Time Weaver was not just a machine, it was a gateway to redemption. Memories, sharp and painful, haunted Elias's waking hours. Every moment was a reminder of what he had lost, a constant replay of the most tragic day of his life. He saw Sarah everywhere, her laughter echoing in the chime of the clocks, her face shimmering in the polished wood of his workbench. It was as if her spirit lingered, trapped in the very essence of his creations.
He remembered the day of the accident as if it were yesterday. The screech of tires, the sickening thud, the blood staining the pavement crimson. The world had stopped in that moment, and his life had been shattered into a million irreparable pieces. He remembered the crushing weight of his daughter's lifeless hand in his own, the coldness of her skin, the finality of her stillness. It was a memory that haunted his every breath, a nightmare from which he could never awaken.
Time, once his craft, had become his tormentor. The very clocks he had lovingly crafted now mocked him with their relentless ticking, each second a reminder of his failure. Each tick of the clock was a nail hammered into the coffin of his guilt. The sound echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of the time he could never get back, the moments he had lost forever. He had been too busy, too lost in the intricate workings of his creations to see the danger, to save his daughter. His obsession with perfection had blinded him to the most important thing in his life. But the Time Weaver offered a chance to rewrite the past, to erase his mistakes and reclaim what he had lost. It was a glimmer of hope in his otherwise dark world, a chance to make things right. The price, he was beginning to realize, might be steeper than he ever imagined. The weight of his decision pressed heavily on him as he pondered the true cost of altering the fabric of time. Would he be willing to pay the ultimate price to bring his daughter back? The workshop transformed into a stage for spectral plays. Elias, manipulating the Time Weaver's controls, became a puppeteer of the past. He revisited moments, a forgotten birthday, a harsh word spoken in anger, a missed opportunity to say, "I love you."
But every adjustment, every subtle tweak to the tapestry of time had unforeseen consequences. The past, he discovered, was not a clay pigeon to be moulded at will. It was a spider web, each strand connected. Tug on one, and the entire structure trembled.
Familiar faces shifted, their features blurring into grotesque masks. Events he thought he'd set right twisted into monstrous parodies, leaving him reeling in a maelstrom of temporal distortions.
Then came Sarah, not the vibrant child of his memories, but a phantom, flickering at the edges of his perception.
He glimpsed her in the workshop, a fleeting smile on her face, heard her laughter echoing in the chime of the grandfather clock.
She spoke of things he thought only he remembered. Shared secrets, inside jokes, a melody she used to hum, a melody he hadn't thought of in years.
He tried to reach out to hold her close, but his fingers passed through her as if she were made of smoke.
Her presence, both comforting and terrifying, fueled his obsession.
He clung to her ethereal visits, each one a bittersweet reminder of what he had lost, and what he desperately hoped to regain. As Elias delved deeper into the labyrinth of the past, a terrifying suspicion began to blossom in his mind. The faces around him, the events he witnessed, they were wrong, twisted, distorted. It was as if by trying to fix the past, he was shattering it into a million irreparable pieces. Elias, as S1, and Sarah, my beloved daughter, her spectral presence seemed to grow fainter with each passing attempt to alter the timeline. The truth, when it finally hit him, was like a shard of ice piercing his heart. The accident, the very event he was trying to undo, was somehow tied to his manipulations of time. Had his obsession blinded him to the truth? Was he not a healer of the past, but its unwitting destroyer? The Time Weaver, once a symbol of hope, became his prison. He was trapped in a loop of his own making, forced to relive the day of Sarah's death, each iteration more horrifying than the last. He saw himself, a ghost in his own past, his actions leading inevitably to the moment he dreaded most, the screech of tires, the sickening thud, the blood staining the pavement crimson. Elias, as S1, there was no escape, no way to outrun the consequences of my actions. I had become the architect of my own despair, my guilt a millstone around my neck, dragging me deeper into the abyss. The clock continued its relentless ticking, a constant reminder of his failure, of the daughter he could never bring back. With dawning horror, Elias understood the true nature of time. It wasn't a river to be dammed or redirected, but a boundless ocean, vast and unforgiving. His attempts to control it, to bend it to his will, had only created ripples, spreading outward, distorting everything they touched. He finally saw the futility of his quest, the price of his obsession. Elias, as S1. I lowered my head, tears tracing paths through the dust on my cheeks. I couldn't change the past. I couldn't bring Sarah back. All I could do was carry the weight of my grief, my love for my daughter, a bittersweet ache in my heart, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the unforgiving nature of time. The workshop, once filled with the comforting rhythm of ticking clocks, fell silent. The Time Weaver, its gears frozen, stood as a monument to Elias's shattered dreams. He abandoned his tools, his obsession replaced by a profound sense of loss and weary acceptance. His days were spent in quiet contemplation, haunted by memories both cherished and painful. Elias as S1. In the end, Elias the clockmaker, the man who dared to control time, learned the hardest lesson of all, that some wounds time cannot heal. The clock of his life would continue to tick, but it was the memory of his daughter, her laughter echoing in the silence, that would forever mark the true measure of his days.